Um, I really want to thank Barnes and Noble. I especially want to thank Sean Lutz, the Community Relations Manager, and my beloved former student, Casey Baker, for setting this up. This is just terrific, and thank you guys, really, for coming out tonight. I'm Alison Dagnes. I wrote a book. This is the book. There are more copies here. And I wrote a book that makes the argument that the media are inhospitable for American politics. And this is a topic that I've loved for quite some time. I loved it before I started writing the book, and then the book sort of zigged and zagged, and I disliked it, and then I came back to loving it again. And the reason that I love it so much is because it's a topic that is constantly in play. It's a topic that everybody is always talking about, and there are plenty of examples to help make the case that the media are, in fact, inhospitable. And so I'm going to begin, actually, with a story from 2006, which is how the book begins. Senator George Allen of Virginia should have been an unbeatable candidate for re-election. He was an incumbent Republican from a GOP-leaning state. He had served as governor for a term before running for his Senate seat. His father was a legendary football coach, and his hair was perfect. But campaigning in the summer before Election Day, he blew his whole re-election effort with one annoyed and terse statement to a college student who was volunteering for his opponent's campaign. Spotting 20-year-old S.R. Siddharth, who was conducting opposition research by videotaping Allen at an event in southwestern Virginia for Democratic candidate Jim Webb, the senator pointed at the young volunteer and said, "This fellow here, over here with the yellow shirt, Macaca, or whatever his name is, he's with my opponent. He's following us around everywhere, and it's just great. Let's give a welcome to Macaca here. Welcome to America and the real world of Virginia." And with that, George Allen's re-election bid came to a screeching halt. His Macaca moment was viewed as an offense, given Siddharth's Indian heritage and the widespread interpretation that Macaca was a racial slur. Allen spent the rest of his campaign trying to explain and defend himself, while Webb came from behind to become a formidable challenger. Allen lost the election by a little more than 7,000 votes, just 0.3% of the ballots cast. Allen lost not just because what he said was particularly stupid, since politicians have been saying stupid things for generations. The crowd to which Allen was speaking even laughed at the Macaca comment at the time, and the senator probably never gave it another thought until the video of his Macaca moment hit the internet and the airwaves and spread like wildfire well beyond Virginia's borders. It all happened because of YouTube, which was just about a year old at the time. Now, this example helps to illustrate how fast everything has become, and a message can be shot out and spread around quicker than most politicians feel comfortable with. But that was 4 years ago. And one of the great things about this topic is that these examples just keep on coming. It's almost time to update the book, and the book is 5 months old. So what happened last summer, here's a fresher example. A Department of Agriculture employee named Shirley Sherrod was thrust into the national spotlight. She had given a speech on racial tolerance in March. And a conservative blogger named Andrew Breitbart took a clip of the speech that made it look as if Ms. Sherrod was actually racially intolerant. He put it up on his website, and everybody reacted really, really quickly. He received comments, and then they all spread out from there. The Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, condemned Sherrod before he saw the entire speech. The NAACP condemned Sherrod, and she received the phone call from the White House asking for her resignation. She must have been baffled about what was happening, and I don't really blame her. But I think that we can blame the media, as horrible as that is to do. This book argues that the media, as we have it right now, they just don't work really well in a productive American democracy. I think Ms. Sherrod would probably agree with me. And so this book is on political media, which used to just be the news. But now political media includes the entertainment media because of the size and options and the scope of all of the media outlets. And the development in the last 30 years has been astronomical. The technological changes like satellite and internet technology and broadband technology have not only sped everything up, they've increased the number of opportunities out there to get your message across. And they've increased the options for viewing and reading and surfing exponentially. They've also increased the opportunities to make money from this. And so there are a lot of effects from these changes. The first is that there's lots and lots of time and space to fill. Now you have 24-hour networks, and 24 hours is a long time to put things on the air. There's a lot of time there. There's an infinite number of internet sites, and there's a lot of space there. And so with all of this comes some consequences. There's some 24-hour news networks that are out there. There are news sites, there are newspapers, and they're still, at this moment, acquiring journalism. They're sending journalists out to go get the facts and get news. But they're also filling a whole lot of space with punditry, which is more opinion than it is anything else. There's this mandate now for excitement and infotainment, which means that everything has to be sparkly and quick and funny and really exciting, which is not what we would normally call the American political process. And so there's also, this financial imperative because there's so much money to be made in all of the ad revenue, in print, on the air, from web pages. And with all of this competition means that there's more people fighting for all of our attention. The partisanship that has resulted in this, it is a different kind of partisanship than the partisanship that we see in the American political system. And I'll kind of get to that in a little bit, but basically where we are right now, we have two sides that are fighting with one another, but we don't really understand what it is they're fighting about. They're just sort of fighting because it's entertaining, because it can attract a lot of attention, and it can bring a lot of viewers. The book goes through medium by medium, and it goes historically. I was told by my sister, make sure this is interesting, so I won't go into the history. Sorry, historians. I'm sorry. But it begins with the print medium, and this includes newspapers and magazines and books. And I think we all are painfully aware of the fact, as we sit in a bookstore, that fewer people are buying books, fewer people are reading newspapers, fewer people are buying magazines, and instead these print entities are moving online. And sometimes that's a very successful shift, and sometimes it doesn't work. The newspapers in particular are facing a terrible crisis, because newspapers have historically been where the news is actually gathered and where facts and information are dug up. And what they're having a very hard time doing now is making money. And so they're shifting online in an effort to try and get everybody to pay attention to them. But they still have to make money online, and so the issue that they're facing is how do they charge for their content, because there's so many options available that people don't want to pay for content anymore. They haven't in the past, and they don't want to do it in the future. And the problem facing the newspapers is so widespread and widely discussed, not only among people who follow journalism, but also people who are just interested in the news, that on NPR, there's this great NPR program called On the Media. And, oh good, you guys are nodding. Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful program. Bob Garfield and Brooke Gladstone host it. And the problem facing newspapers is so often talked about that they have come up with a jingle to play every time somebody addresses the problem. So someone will say, and that's the difficulty with the newspaper industry, and they'll say, stop. Cue the jingle. And so they play the jingle, which is present and future business models for monetizing the newspaper industry. And it's very catchy and it's very cute. But you know that if a problem has a theme song, something has gone horribly, horribly awry. Magazines face the same kind of problems, books as well. And so from there I go to radio. There's terrestrial and satellite radio. And that allows more options available. AM radio, which tends to be more talk radio. There's a place for that, and I was just interviewing over the summer a conservative satirist who said that talk radio was the greatest place for conservatives because it was a place that they could go and they could feel at home. They could hear their opinions being discussed, and he said that was just so wonderful, and I kind of thought, okay, I hadn't thought about it like that. What I see talk radio as being is more entertainment than news, because talk radio, Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Michael Savage, they have 3 hours to fill, and they're not going line by line through a healthcare bill. What they're doing is trying to entertain their audience, and they're the first ones to admit this. This is not a slur on what it is that they do, and they do it quite well, and they do it quite profitably, which is why they keep doing it. My wonderful husband would be very upset if I didn't mention streaming radio on the computer, because that's how he is now moving to get all of his radio. But that opens it up, so that means that you can now hear radio stations that are broadcasting out of Milwaukee or out of Jakarta.